like, subscribe, and keep building your inner strength with the Stoic Mind Fortress. There is a pain that many people carry in silence, not the pain of losing someone, but the pain of not being able to stop thinking about them. You know they are no longer right for your peace. You know the relationship has changed. You know they are no longer showing up in your life the way they once did, yet somehow your mind keeps returning to them again and again and again. Not because you're weak, not because you lack self-respect, and not because the past was perfect, but because the human mind becomes attached to what it repeatedly experiences. The more attention we give something, the deeper its roots grow inside us. This is why letting go is often much harder than people expect. You don't just lose the person, you lose the routines, the expectations, the future you imagined, the version of yourself that existed when they were there. And sometimes what hurts the most isn't what happened, it's what never happened. The conversation that never took place, the apology that never came, the explanation you never received, the questions that remain unanswered. So your mind keeps searching, replaying old memories, revisiting old conversations, analyzing every detail, looking for clues, looking for meaning, looking for closure, as if one more thought might finally make everything make sense. But here's what Stoic wisdom teaches: not every question receives an answer, and not every wound heals through understanding. Some wounds heal through acceptance. This is one of the hardest lessons in Stoicism, because we naturally want certainty, we want explanations, we want closure. We want people to tell us why they changed, why they left, why they stopped caring, why they chose a different path. But life doesn't always provide those answers. Sometimes people leave without explanation. Sometimes relationships end without resolution. Sometimes the story ends before you feel ready, and no amount of thinking can change that reality. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that suffering comes when we fight against what already exists. The event itself may hurt, but resisting the reality of it creates even more pain. Think about how much energy people spend trying to solve emotional mysteries, months, sometimes years, trying to understand someone else's behavior, trying to understand someone else's choices, trying to understand someone else's silence. Meanwhile, their own life waits in the background. Their dreams wait, their goals wait, their growth waits, their peace waits, because their attention remains trapped in a chapter that has already ended. The Stoic mindset asks a different question. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this to me?" ask, "What am I doing to myself by refusing to let go?" That question changes everything, because suddenly the focus returns to the one thing you can actually control: yourself. The truth is that many people are not attached to the person anymore. They're attached to the feeling, the memory, the possibility, the fantasy of what could have been. And those things can be harder to release than reality itself. Psychology explains something fascinating. Every time you revisit the same emotional memory, you strengthen the neural pathway connected to it. In simple terms, the more you replay it, the stronger it becomes. It's like walking through the same path in a forest every day. Eventually, the trail becomes easier and easier to follow. That's exactly what happens inside your mind. The memory becomes automatic, the longing becomes automatic, the pain becomes familiar, and familiarity often disguises itself as love. But familiarity and love are not always the same thing. Sometimes what you miss is not the person. Sometimes you miss who you thought they were. Sometimes you miss how they made you feel. Sometimes you miss the comfort of having someone there. And sometimes you're simply grieving a future that never happened. There is nothing wrong with grieving. There is nothing wrong with missing someone. There is nothing wrong with feeling sadness. Stoicism does not teach emotional suppression. It teaches emotional understanding. Feel the sadness, acknowledge the loss, respect the memories, But don't build a permanent home inside temporary pain, because your life is still moving forward, whether you notice it or not. Every sunrise is an invitation to begin again. Every day offers a new opportunity to invest your energy somewhere healthier, somewhere stronger, somewhere real. The person who hurt you may never apologize. The person who left may never return. The person who confused you may never explain themselves. And that's okay, because your healing was never supposed to depend on their actions. Your healing begins the moment you stop handing them responsibility for your peace. The moment you realize that closure is not something they give you, it's something you create for yourself. By accepting reality, by releasing control, by choosing your future over your past. This is where true freedom begins, not when they finally understand your value, not when they finally come back, not when they finally explain themselves, but when you no longer need them to, because your peace no longer depends on their participation. That is emotional strength, that is wisdom, that is growth, and that is one of the most powerful lessons Stoicism can teach. So if someone has been living rent-free in your mind, take a deep breath. Wish them well. Release what you cannot control, and gently bring your focus back to your own life, your own future, your own purpose. Because the chapter ahead of you deserves more attention than the chapter behind you. One of the most dangerous lies the mind tells us is this: if I still miss them, maybe they're meant to be in my life. At first, that thought feels reasonable. After all, why would someone still occupy your mind if they weren't important? Why would memories keep returning? Why would certain songs still hurt? Why would certain places still feel different? Why would part of you still wish things had turned out another way? The answer is simple. Because you are human, not because they belong in your future. There is a huge difference, a difference that many people never learn. And because they never learn it, they spend years reopening doors that were meant to stay closed. The Stoic mindset teaches us something powerful. Missing someone is an emotion. Returning to them is a decision. Those are not the same thing. You can miss someone and still know they are wrong for you. You can love someone and still understand they cannot give you peace. You can care deeply about a person and still choose not to invite them back into your life. That is emotional maturity. That is self-respect. And that is one of the hardest lessons in Stoicism. Because emotions often speak louder than wisdom. When loneliness arrives at night, it doesn't remind you why the relationship ended. It reminds you of the good moments, the laughter, the affection, the connection, the comfort, the memories that made you feel alive. The mind becomes selective. It edits the story. It highlights the beautiful chapters and quietly hides the painful ones. Suddenly, you begin missing a version of the relationship that never truly existed. You remember the promises, but forget the disappointments. You remember the chemistry, but forget the confusion. You remember the affection, but forget the inconsistency. You remember how they made you feel, but forget how often they made you question your worth. This is why deep reflection matters, because feelings tell stories, but facts tell the truth. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to see things as they really are, not as emotions wished them to be. Imagine touching a hot stove. The first time it burns you, the lesson is clear. But what if every time you remembered the stove, your mind only focused on how warm it felt? Eventually, you might convince yourself to touch it again, not because it changed, but because your memory became distorted. Many relationships follow the same pattern. People return not because the situation improved, but because they forgot why they left. This is why Stoic wisdom emphasizes reality over fantasy. Reality protects you. Fantasy traps you. Reality says, they repeatedly disrespected my boundaries. Fantasy says, but maybe they've changed. Reality says, they only valued me when I was leaving. Fantasy says, but what if this time is different? Reality says, the relationship brought more anxiety than peace. Fantasy says, but I miss them. And this is where many people get stuck. They confuse missing someone with needing someone. The truth is that missing someone simply means they mattered. It doesn't automatically mean they deserve another place in your life. Think about a chapter from your childhood. You may miss it, you may think about it often, you may even wish you could revisit it. But that doesn't mean you're supposed to live there forever. Life moves forward. Growth requires movement, and movement often requires letting go. The Stoic understands this, not because letting go is easy, but because refusing to let go creates suffering. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. At first, it's manageable, but over time, it becomes exhausting. Your shoulders ache, your back hurts, your energy disappears, yet you continue carrying it because you've grown used to the weight. Many people do this emotionally. They carry old relationships, old disappointments, old heartbreaks, old regrets, old attachments, not because those things help them, but because they have become familiar. Eventually, the burden feels normal, and that's dangerous, because what becomes normal often goes unquestioned. The Stoic mindset challenges you to ask, is this helping me become who I want to be? If the answer is no, then holding on is no longer an act of love. It's an act of self-abandonment. The reality is that some people enter your life for a season. Some people enter your life for a lesson. And a very small number enter your life for a lifetime. Wisdom comes from knowing the difference. Not everyone who touched your heart is meant to stay in your future. Not everyone who changed your life is meant to walk beside you forever. Sometimes their purpose was simply to teach you something, to strengthen you, to awaken you, to show you what you deserve, or to show you what you should never accept again. And once that lesson is learned, the chapter ends. The pain begins when you keep trying to reread a chapter that is already finished. The future cannot enter a life that is still clinging to the past. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you erase the memories. It doesn't mean you pretend they never mattered. It means you honor the experience without allowing it to control your future. That is strength. That is growth. That is Stoicism. So the next time you miss someone, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, do I miss the person? Or do I miss the feeling they gave me? Do I want them back? Or do I simply want relief from loneliness? Because those answers can change everything. Remember, missing someone is natural. Returning to what destroyed your peace is optional. Choose wisely. Choose growth. Choose yourself. And trust that what is truly meant for your future will never require you to abandon your self-respect to keep it. If this message resonates with you, comment below, I choose growth over attachment. And if you're enjoying these lessons from the Stoic Mind Fortress, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue exploring Stoicism, inner peace, and the path to emotional freedom.